Stop. Don't scroll. This is your sign, your moment to change everything. In the next few minutes, you'll either find an excuse or a reason to succeed. Which one will you choose? Have you ever been so broken that even your own voice couldn't explain the pain inside you? Have you ever felt like screaming, but instead, you stayed silent? Let me tell you something you may not have heard before. Silence is not weakness. Silence is power. Just like the eagle, silent in the sky, but deadly in its strike. This is the power of silence. There's a time in everyone's life when the world seems to turn its back on you. You try to speak, but no one listens. You cry, but no one sees. You break, but the world says, "Be strong." So you stay quiet, not because you have nothing to say, but because your soul is tired of screaming for help. And in that silence, something powerful begins to grow. Let me take you into the life of a man who gave his all to the world, his heart, his dreams, his voice. But life, it hit him hard, betrayed by his closest friends, laughed at for dreaming too big, left alone in a world that once cheered for him. He could have shouted, he could have fought back, but he didn't. He chose silence. Not because he gave up, but because he was about to rise, just like the eagle. Do you know what the eagle does when the storm comes? It doesn't run. It doesn't hide. While other birds flee, the eagle spreads its mighty wings and flies directly into the storm, not to fight it, but to use it. Because the storm that scares other birds is the wind that lifts the eagle higher. That's what silence can do. It can take your pain, your struggles, your tears, and transform them into strength. You see, silence is not the end of your story. It's the training ground. While people think you're done, you're building. While they're laughing, you're learning. While they're speaking noise, you're mastering the storm. Great warriors are not born in crowds. They are forged in silence. In the lonely nights, in the quiet battles no one sees. Because growth is silent. Healing is silent. Transformation is silent. Maybe right now, you're going through your silent battle, a heartbreak no one knows about, a failure that crushed your spirit, a dream you've buried because the world didn't believe in it, and you're sitting there, wondering, why me? Why am I always the one who gets hurt? Why does nobody understand? Let me tell you, the eagle doesn't explain itself to the pigeons. It doesn't lower its flight to make others comfortable. It soars above the noise. So if you're in that place of silence right now, if you feel like you've lost your voice, remember this: you are not lost. You are being refined. There's power in you the world hasn't seen yet, strength that's been hidden under pain, wings that are waiting to spread. But first, you must embrace the silence, not run from it, because silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. In silence, you will find yourself again. In silence, your roar will be reborn. So the next time life tries to break you, don't rush to explain yourself. Don't shout to be heard. Stand tall. Stay silent. Watch. Listen. Because while the world is busy making noise, you're building power. The eagle doesn't need applause to rise, and neither do you. The eagle is a bird like no other. It doesn't fly with flocks, it doesn't settle for leftovers, and it doesn't fear the storm. You know what makes the eagle so powerful? Focus. When an eagle locks its eyes on its prey, it doesn't blink. It doesn't get distracted. No matter how far, no matter how fast the wind blows, it stays focused. That's the first lesson of the eagle attitude. In your silence, you must learn to focus, not on the noise, not on the critics, not on your failures, but on your goal, on your future, on your why. There comes a time in an eagle's life when it must make a painful decision. At around 40 years old, its claws become too curved to grab prey, its beak too bent, its feathers too heavy for flight, and so the eagle retreats to the mountains, where it begins a painful rebirth. It breaks its own beak by hitting it against a rock. It waits for it to grow back. Then it rips off its old talons and plucks out its own heavy feathers, alone, in silence, in pain. Why? Because it wants to live again. It wants to fly again. This process takes 5 months, but when it's done, the eagle is reborn. Stronger, faster, sharper. Now, ask yourself, what are you holding on to that's keeping you from flying? Old habits? Toxic people? Past pain? Sometimes, silence is the space where you do the hardest thing of all. Let go, because you can't fly into your future holding the weight of your past. Think about a seed. When it's planted, what happens? It gets buried in darkness, alone, covered in dirt, surrounded by pressure. But that's not death. That's the beginning of life. Silence is your soil. You may feel buried, forgotten, overwhelmed. But maybe you're not buried. Maybe you're being planted, and something is growing inside of you. Something powerful. Something that will break through the ground when the time is right. Don't rush the process. Every flower blooms in its own time. When the world goes silent, your inner voice gets louder. That voice inside of you, the one that tells you to keep going, to rise, to fight, to believe. That voice is your true self. Most people never hear it because they're too busy drowning in the noise of others. But in silence, you reconnect with it. So listen, not to fear, not to doubt, but to that small, steady whisper inside you that says, you were made for more. You will fall. You will fail. You will lose things you thought you could never live without. But hear this, the fall is not your ending. It's your launch pad. Because the eagle, before it flies, it must drop from the cliff. It must trust its wings. And you too must take that leap, that risk, that painful step forward, not knowing where you'll land, but trusting that you were born to rise. You have something inside of you that the world hasn't seen yet. It's not your looks, not your talent, not your words. It's your spirit, your ability to endure, to adapt, to overcome. The eagle doesn't fight to prove itself. It just rises, and the world watches. That's what silence teaches you. You don't have to announce your greatness, just become it. So now, what do? You stand up, you rise, you embrace the silence, the pain, the pressure, and you build your wings. Because inside of you is not a victim. There's a fighter, a warrior, an eagle, and your time is coming. That moment when you'll rise above the noise, above the doubts, above the storm, and soar. The storm doesn't stop the eagle. It lifts it. And your silence, it's not your end. It's the beginning of your greatest rise. Be silent. Be still. Be strong. Because when the time comes, you will fly.